was quite a noise, wasn't it? Hope JC's all right. It's Thursday, isn't it? Yep, it's Thursday. It's Footy Prime. As promised, we've got a guest today to talk about MLS Cup action this weekend. LA Galaxy taking on New York Red Bulls. Cara Lang is back with us, second time in 2 weeks. Still not paying her, but we appreciate it anyway, Cara.
Is she going to be wrong again too? Remember how wrong she was last time?
Half wrong.
Half wrong. Half wrong. Yes.
That's how I live my life. Half wrong. It's like a black and white cookie.
Half right, half wrong.
One side's right, one side's one side's Walsh, one side's Wong.
Hey, listen, before we get to the MLS Cup, I want to just talk about our good friend and your good friend in particular, Rhian Wilkinson, and what she's just done with Wales, getting them to Euro 2025. I'm sure you've seen all the interviews and the reaction and what that could mean for Welsh football for women and for girls, how massive it is. Cara, let's start with you. I know Dubs has got a lot to say about it, but I mean, without being patronizing, we should all be just so fucking proud that a Canadian is making such an impact in a football country.
Yeah, so proud. I mean, we are. I know I am. As soon as I saw that result, it's just like it warms your heart for Rhian because she's such a good person. She's such a good coach. She's such a hard worker. To see all of her hard work paying off and like relatively quickly. She hasn't been there that long and she's already making history. Like this is phenomenal and it's life-changing for women and young girls in Wales. I just think, the impact that she's had has already been so massive and she's only going to continue to have more of an impact. And I think that those players are so lucky to have her.
I think Rhian also went in and had a clarity about what she wanted to accomplish, about what she wanted to put into place, and allowed those players to see their full potential and now to realize it, but see that as a stepping stone onto bigger and better things. Like that's what she's instilled there, like the sense of belief in one another and in Welsh football and for the next generation, as they keep talking about. I was listening to it with my twins on BBC Wales, like the radio feed. And they added Ireland came back and closed the gap. So it was 3-2 on aggregate and 8 minutes of stoppage time. I was like, holy shit. So I was like sitting there, like just walking on eggshells and then just everybody celebrating and dancing around the kitchen. So pleased for her because it's great. Like it's a historic moment for them. But it's a really important moment, I think, for Rhian in her coaching career and kind of wresting that narrative away from the naysayers and really forging and blazing that trail for herself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think Dubs is a bit of a cult leader with her kids. She got them to buy into Rhian's.
You will watch this.
Yes. You're going to listen even more. You're going to listen to this old-timey radio in the kitchen.
Yeah. Welsh football on the BBC over the wireless.
I'm like, come listen to this, see?
Come on.
Audie Rhian, see? She's a fine coach over there.
So proud of her. You said it. Like, I mean, to see one of her own, it's too bad she's not doing it for Canadian soccer.
I wrote about that on Twitter. I said in a parallel universe, or a time fold somewhere, she is coaching Canada right now, right? And she should be coaching Canada right now. And they really dropped the ball when they had the opportunity to get her, right? But hey, that's water under the bridge. At some point, I mean, listen, you guys know at some point, it may not obviously be in the near future. At some point, we're going to see a Rhian Wilkinson back in Canada, aren't we? Coaching Canada, Cara?
I think so. I hope so. I mean, you never know, especially with Canada soccer, you never know. But I have to imagine that if she continues to do this well and make her mark the way she is, that we see her back home eventually.
What is with us, though, honestly? Like, why do we have to wait for somebody to do it somewhere else, do it for another country to see the inherent value that was always there? We do it with sponsorship. We do it with companies. We're not innovative. We want other people to take the risk, but it shouldn't be a risk to double down on one of your own. Somebody
to bet on yourself and your own people.
To bet on Canadians. Come on.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Well, I mean, what this can do for Canadian coaches, right? The respect and the credibility around the world when you see someone from here having success at a nation that hasn't had success before. That can only.
What do you mean? We had John Herdman. We have Bev Priestman. John Herdman. We have Bev Priestman. fart in church.
Well, I mean, who else? I mean, okay, Frank Yallop did a really good job in the States, right? Obviously English descent, but Canadian as well. I mean, there aren't many. I'm trying to think of Canadian coaches who've had success overseas in any regard.
Well, Carm won the championship in Mexico.
Yes.
Carm,
okay. Yeah, that's right, and that's more recent, right?
Yeah.
What about Julian de Guzman as sporting director of New York Red Bulls? Right?
Paul Pescasolido had a time at Burton Albion, but there aren't many though. That's my point, right? On the big stage, and around the world. I mean, listen, in Mexico, people know who Carm is, right? Do people in Europe? They should do.
Yeah, I think they're starting to. I mean, she's there right now, kind of on a little mini tour, I think. But
is she?
I think she's making a name for herself for sure.
And she had a successful stint in Denmark, did she not? Before she went to Tigres.
She did, yeah.
Well, I'm really being found out here, aren't I? My lack of knowledge of Carm's career.
Well, not only that, it sounds like Cara knows stuff, and she's not really revealing it all. She's on a bit of a tour there.
I do know with Tigres, like with Tigres, they had posters of her all over the store, cool. Shop, or the team shop, and like fans. She was like the most popular not player on the team. Like fans had like signs of her dog and stuff. Like she was wildly popular with Tigres. Yeah,
she wrote a great column actually. Did you read that about her experience?
No.
Yeah. Where was it, Dubs? Where did I find that column? I think you sent it to us, I think. And
I think it was on LinkedIn. She just, or no, it was another publication, but she shared it on LinkedIn and just talking about her year as an assistant coach at Louisville, right?
Yeah. I knew that.
I've probably heard it all already from her, but yeah.
I know, from the horse's mouth.
But it's a great perspective, right? Hearing from an assistant coach and what that year was like for her. You don't get that very often. Right, but it was very well written. But still, it was still not getting the respect we should, though. Dubs, Guardian's top 100 women footballers, of which you were involved in. Now I'm looking at it. Only 3 Canadians, right, or 2 Canadians?
Well, it's very easy to obtain like publicly, and the Guardian's a great publication. And I think in general, with that top 100, you get a pretty good. Equitable, as unbiased as you're going to get representation of the talent in women's football. But I think when you've got, it was myself, so a quick scan of the people who are casting ballots. So I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure it was only myself, Miriam Kurabi, and Megan Johnson. So Miriam, she scores bangers. If you don't follow her, you need to, must follow for anything women's football in general, and Megan Johnson, who does work for TSN. I think we were the only 3 Canadians on that list. So it's going to remain. And I alluded to this a few weeks ago when I was compiling my list. I want to have bias. Like I have players that I'm familiar with, players that I like, players that I prefer. I like their style of play, I like their character, or they're Canadian, and that's okay. And I'm going to lean on that bias. That's why I'm asked to do it. So I won't reveal where I had Vanessa Gilles, but she had a banner year. She had an extraordinary, remarkable year for club and for country. And she was 66th, I think. So they're kind of unveiling the top 100 list as they get closer to the top 20. So I won't say where I had her, but it was in the top half at least, and maybe even in the top 25.
It was number one, wasn't it?
It was not. I mean, there's still a credibility piece there, right? Like, I imagine the people who are putting it together, like, we're not having fucking wash on next year.
Canadians,
Get her out of there.
Well, I'm looking at
my reputation to control here.
I don't see the top 40, right? They're still unveiling.
I think they're unveiling that slowly but surely.
So there could be some players in the top 40 still.
Yep. You mean
so why is so upset? Yeah, well, perhaps you're all whiny because there's not enough Canadians, but there's still 40 players doing that.
Okay. I'm all whiny. Really?
Well, I'm just saying there's 40
players. Trigger word.
So based on the year. So that's something else that they say to you. They say, remember, this is not like a historic kind of representation of this player's career. This is for 2024. So sometimes
otherwise you would have put yourself on that list.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Imagine.
They're like specifically speaking to you, Amy. This is not historical.
But I think if we just look at Canadian players this year, is there anybody who had a better year for our Canadian women's national team than Vanessa Gilles? So I think that's why there's the uproar, because I think you expect to see her much higher, not only relative to the rest of the world, but also relative to our own Canadians.
Okay, but regardless, I mean, listen, the Guardian do this for the men as well. It's done so well, right? Yeah, there's always going to be bias, and these lists always are going to conjure debate, and that's all part of it. But if you should get a chance, and if everyone's got a chance, go on Guardian.com right now, theguardian.com, because it's great. It's the way it's presented, and they've got a lot of players, journalists, I think coaches too, all part of the voting process. So maybe we'll revisit it when the top 40 are announced, and then see how angry Dubs is.
I'm going to email Rich. Do you know Rich Laverty? He does a lot of women's football coverage and has worked for publications in the past. And now he has his own Substack, which is phenomenal. But I'm going to be like, Rich, we need Cara on that list. Mm-hmm. Rich, let's get Carmelina on that list, or like Har, who covers Vancouver Whitecaps and women's national team. Like, let's just get more Canadian voices as part of that list.
If there was an all-time top 100 list for women's soccer, we should talk about this. Yeah, I'm going to say, where's Cara on that list? Where is she?
Probably not.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
Absolutely.
No, she wouldn't be on the
I'm
top.
Flattered.
No, you're not. You're not. No. You're not even close.
Cara would be.
Bad knees.
100%. You know, Cara, you know who you are, right, Cara?
Horrific knees.
You are the Marco Van Basten of women's soccer. You are. I've said this before.
Yep. You're the Isaiah Thomas.
Marco Van Basten was a legend and could have been one of the great, true greats, but his knees let him down. He was 27 when he retired.
Oh,
I like to refer to Marco Van Basten as the Carl Lang of men's soccer. First of all.
Well, okay. Jesus Christ, Dubs. Just accept
Keep
it.
calling me whiny charms. I'm going to be on you the entire show.
You were
whiny.
You were talking at a subcommittee at Parliament. So.
All right, should we get to MLS?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, Cara. If we told you when the playoffs began that the Red Bulls would be in the final, how surprised would you have been?
I think I would have been shocked. I mean, they have an opportunity to make history here by winning the MLS Cup, but they've also already made history by being the lowest seed to ever make it to the final. I mean, they were the 7th seed. They were the 16th best team in the regular season. So I think everybody's shocked. But I think that a lot of that is because a large chunk of that season was without Emil Forsberg. And he is just so integral to the success of this team. I mean, he can score, he can create, he's a leader for this otherwise very young team. He settles the game down when the ball's at his feet for a team that's very much all gas, no brakes when he hasn't got the ball at his feet. So I think they're just a completely different threat with him on the pitch, and he will be there. And we've seen what he can do throughout the playoffs. And I just think that this team is probably underrated because of their performance during the season, which was a lot of it without him.
And great sound bites as well, right? Was it before, maybe when they went into the playoffs, they punched their ticket, or maybe it was semifinals and he's like, fuck it, why not us?
I mean, he's Swedish. Come on. That's like what you would expect, isn't it? Like, would you expect any less?
Is it out of Swedes?
Are the Swedes that way?
I think so. I mean, have you met any Swedish people? Yeah.
Try not to.
They pretty much just say whatever is on their mind, don't they?
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they
no
foul-mouthed as a people?
It's
no, I don't think it was the foul mouth. It was the lack of filter.
Yeah.
And speaking a second language, even though English is spoken everywhere in Sweden.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
I think it's just
as we were making racial stereotypes and national
no,
stereotypes.
It's like the same as like Norwegians. They just, it's very to the point and exactly what is on their mind.
And what do you think about what Schwartz has instilled there? So like what they've been playing in the playoffs and finding success has been less Red Bull football and more Route One kind of simplicity and directness.
I think they've bought in completely. I mean, it's very obvious what his philosophy is. It's let's control the game. Sorry about the screaming children.
The game, control your children, Lang.
Ricky's on the job.
That's a very 80s response to child rearing. All right.
He's throwing fastballs at the heads right now.
It's very much less about controlling the game through possession and very much about controlling the game in how you press the ball. It's their identity. They have bought in, and it's worked up to this point. I mean, they've had 3 clean sheets in all their away wins in the playoffs. So, I mean, it remains to be seen if that particular brand is going to work against the LA Galaxy, but I think it's going to pose a very different kind of challenge for the Galaxy, because everything that they've come up against so far in the playoffs has been a low block. I mean, they do well against pressure, but they haven't had to deal with this kind of pressure so far. And I'm very curious to see what it looks like. I mean, Greg Vanney, that was one of the first comments that he made after the game when they knew they were playing the Red Bulls, was he just kept calling it a very intriguing matchup. So I think the wheels were already starting to turn about, okay, how are we going to handle this one? Because this is somewhat new.
Especially without Ricky Puig.
Yes.
Which is a massive loss. Can Marco Royce step into those shoes?
So Marco Royce
right?
is actually dealing with a bit of an injury. I don't expect Marco Royce to be the one to step up. I think that we are going to see Diego Fagundes stepping up in that position, which, I mean, he's no Ricky Puig, but he's also no slouch. I mean, he's an MLS vet. He had a very impactful career with the New England Revolution, then was a star at Austin. He's sort of been waiting in the wings, chomping at the bit for this opportunity. I don't think he's the kind of guy who's going to shy away from the moment by any means. So he's definitely a great option as a backup. But I mean, Ricky Puig is just, it's a brutal loss for the Galaxy. He is the heartbeat of this team. Everything goes through Ricky Puig. He just, he's contributed to a third of all of their goals, whether he's scored or assisted them. And his service out wide to the wings, to Paintsill and Peck has just been unbelievable, especially from his left side to the right to Peck. I mean, he's a huge reason why Peck has been so productive this season. So yeah, they're obviously going to miss him, but I don't worry about the Galaxy through the middle of the pitch because of Diego Fagundes, as well as Edwin Cerrillo, the young surprise sort of standout midfielder for the Galaxy. I mean, he balances the midfield. It's going to be his job to really contain Emil Forsberg there as he's playing the 6. And so, yeah, I think they'll be good through the middle of the pitch, but it won't be quite the same, obviously, without Ricky Puig.
So they're without their talisman and they lose some of his brilliance, but in many ways, it brings like a pragmatism and a stability to that midfield that they need against the Red Bulls. We're going to look to hit direct, look to go vertical on the counter. So, and maybe ask more of the wingers to try to win the match from Vanney and Galaxy's perspective.
For sure. I also think the center backs are going to have a tough task. I mean, Maya Yoshida and Amiro Garces, they're going to have their work cut out for them because Ricky Puig won't be there. When they're on the ball, they're going to be asked to be on the ball, take a lot more touches than they normally do because they won't have Ricky Puig dropping back all the way into his own half to receive the ball at his feet and then spray it out wide. So like you mentioned, the wingers, there's going to be a lot more responsibility on them, but the center backs are going to have to provide more of that distribution to those wingers. And if they're not clean on the ball, it's going to get messy because with the kind of pressure that the New York Red Bulls put on you, I mean, they're going to have to be on top of their game.
Is it 16 goals in 4 games for the Galaxy?
Crazy, right? They're one away from beating TFC's record. So the only other team to score more was TFC when they were coached by Greg Vanney in 2016.
Yeah,
so
I mean, let's talk about Greg Vanney. I mean, he's turned this around pretty quickly, quicker than people thought. Right? Oh,
I think, I mean, just walking around the stadium, you can see even the fans are shocked to not only have a contender, but to have a team in the final. And they asked for this. 18 months ago, there were fan boycotts calling for a completely new front office. And the team listened. They brought in Will Kuntz. 9 of the 11 starters in the last match were the new GM's signings. That's wild. 9 of the 11 starters last match were Will Kuntz signings. So
that's a year and a half ago.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that is an insane transfer. And they only won 8 games last season. To go from only winning 8 games to making it to the final, like that's absolutely insane. And I mean, the one thing that's remained the same is Ricky Puig, but we talked about it last time. You saw his potential, but I don't think anybody knew that he could be as good as he's been this season with the supporting cast that he's got. And it's all credit to Wilkinson and the signings that he's made, but also to Greg Vanney for plugging those players into the right spots. I mean, he had to tinker a little bit. Gabriel Peck started out on the left at the beginning of the season. Joseph Painsil was on the right. It wasn't quite clicking. Joseph Painsil got injured. Gabriel Peck moved to the right side of the pitch. And when Painsil came back, he recognized that Peck was better there, and he offered to start playing on the left, which is not his better side. So it's just like a lot of maneuvering, but just sort of a masterclass by Greg Vanney in how to get a group of very talented young players to all play together. And also just a sign of a transformation within this club and how they scout. You know, like this is a club that historically has built teams based on aging superstars. And that hasn't worked for them in the last 10 years. It's been a decade without a championship for the Galaxy. We saw this season, it didn't work for Miami either. I don't think it's what really flies in the MLS anymore. And I think Wilkins knew that, and he's brought in a bunch of in-prime young players, players that weren't really on anybody else's radar. Like, I don't think anybody really knew who Joseph Painsil was before this season, but you see what he can do, and you're like, how was he not on more people's radar? And Gabriel Peck, I mean, he had a good run with Vasco da Gama, and he was on the youth Brazilian national teams. But I mean, the way he's playing right now, MLS newcomer of the year, and I think he's got such a bright future in this league if they don't sell him to somebody else next year. But it's just really, really cool to see what's possible when you get the right people in place and in the front office.
Do you think sorry, it's just a stupid question. Do you think that the EDM music that you talked about last podcast you were on that gets played at Galaxy games, do you think that's emblematic of the playing style, or is that not a right fit?
No, I think it is a perfect fit, and I think that it might be like directly from Ricky Puch's like iPod. I think an iPod, and I think it's plugged. The system in the stadium is plugged into his iPod.
well, Jurgen Klopp has heavy metal, right? Football. So this is
that's what I had concluded as well.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask the most important question. At your home with two elite athletes, Cara, who's the most competitive, you or Ricky?
I think that's very hard to say. It's like not uncommon for us all to be playing basketball out in the driveway, and then eventually the kids get bored and they like trickle back inside, and then like an hour later Ricky and I are still playing horse, and we're like, should we watch? Or we'll even have like, it'll be a play date and other people's kids are over, and we're like, should we go feed those kids inside? And we're like, no, one more. So
and then and the other thing would be, Sharms, can you imagine Dubs and JP playing a sport against Ricky and Cara? We've got to set this up. Former elite athletes, Olympians, World Cup, and professional hockey players and baseball players. We could sell tickets to this. This is Footy Prime Media talking right now.
I have a feeling our husbands would quit because Amy and I it would just get so dirty that they'd be I can see that.
You know what? That is exactly how it would go.
Girls are nuts.
Ricky's shoulders, right? He has shoulder issues. You had knee issues.
He had knee issues, actually.
Oh, was it knee? Was it? Oh,
yeah.
Is that
quad tendons? He had to like reattach his quad tendons to his patella.
And people don't realize with pitches, right? How your legs and your lower body are so important.
Yeah, it's all lower half.
So injury-wise, I mean, Dubs is pretty healthy. Is JP still healthy, or is he still feeling the pains of being a hockey player? Dubs, does he wake up in pain?
No, but his shoulders are pretty bad. He had shoulder surgery a couple times. He broke his sternum once. Ooh. Being driven into not the dasher, but you know, when the boards and the glass continue as you kind of loop around the corner, and then where the bench ends, he got checked into that. I remember we weren't even dating. I was still at Nebraska, and he called me, and he was like out of breath, not actually when it happened, but as he was recovering. I was like, are you okay? Like, what's wrong? He's like, I broke my sternum. Like, holy shit.
That's a good one, isn't it?
But this is his foreplay. That was his love talk. That was his love talk.
It was part of the long game he was playing.
Feel sorry for
me. Like me and Cara and Ricky and JP, and maybe we'll recruit Jimmy, and then we'll play you guys the rest of Footy Prime. I think that would be
no, let's not do that. It's a terrible idea. No,
a
terrible idea. Okay. I got my toes x-rayed yesterday, which is fun.
Oh,
And it was
Yeah.
gout, right? It was
No,
gout.
it's not. No, I'll find out today or tomorrow. I don't think it's gout. I think it's just old man arthritis. I think is what it is, which isn't great.
no.
But thankfully, I was never an athlete, so I'm not really losing that much. Oh, I can't run as well anymore. Never could run. So anyway, back to the football. Greg Vanney. So he kind of reminds me a little bit of the TFC team that he had and he built. He had Josie Altidore and Michael Bradley, who no one was really talking about. I mean, Josie had apparently failed in Europe, right? Apart from a good stint in Holland. But he made them superstars. And of course, he just gets Giovinco, who was kind of a bit part player at Juventus, had done well at Parma, but he elevated these players.
Yeah.
What is it about him, do you think? And his tactics is one thing, but is it more than
I think it's a lot of it is the way he talks to the players and the relationship he has with the players. Joseph Paintsill last week said that Greg Vanney is like a father figure to him. And he said that that he's not the only one that feels that way. He said that the way that he speaks to you, the way that he approaches you about situations just makes you want to do everything you can for him. And so, I mean, I don't know if that's not buy-in, I don't know what is. I think he just builds these relationships and has this belief in this team, and they have this belief. It's a very team first atmosphere, and that's all because of what he's built. And he has his guys that he trusts. I mean, it's about trust. He trusts his players. They trust him. Mark Delgado is a guy who was with TFC when they were winning. And he's here. I mean, he came in the second half against Seattle and changed the game. So that's a guy who almost a decade later, Greg Vanney is still relying on to have a major impact in massively important games. So you can just that you see that loyalty in that situation alone, but he's just very level-headed, very calm. I mean, he did get pretty worked up last game when Galaxy came out in the second half and they were rushing. I mean, it's that balance between urgency and rushing. They needed a bit more urgency. You could tell as the game was starting to wear on, because it was just, the longer it went, the more it was playing into Seattle's hands. They'd won so many games on PKs already. They'd won against LAFC in extra time. So you could tell they felt the need to do something and do something quickly, but it manifested as them rushing, and they were sloppy, and he was screaming from the sidelines to calm down, which I don't know how you like being screamed at to calm down. To calm down is not usually isn't the most effective, but it worked. They did it, And then Ricky Puig, I haven't mentioned this, but he played for 30 minutes on a torn ACL. We were talking about
crazy,
injuries, but that's wild. And he's known for being a prima donna.
Assist, right?
For the winner. He assisted the winning goal on a torn ACL. And I was saying he's known for being a prima donna because he is a prima donna, but also he's clearly got that fight in him, like he may have done it just purely out of spite to silence his haters, but he did it nonetheless. He's a fighter. And it just goes to show, like, that's just another example. He's another guy who is so dedicated and passionate about the success of this team. And I think it's kind of across the board with the team.
Do you think that they need to win it? Do they need to win MLS Cup in order for Ricky Puig to go down in like the lore of Galaxy football?
I don't think so. I think this transformational year has already been so impressive to so many people that I think it's going to be massively disappointing if they don't. And they're the clear favorite. I think they should win. But no, I think that this team has already achieved so much. And the fact that they lost Ricky Puig, they can kind of hang their hat on, well, our best player wasn't there, So I think, yeah.
So the Caroline prediction is LA Galaxy to lift another championship.
So they will lose.
And it will be New York Red Bulls.
Did Amy tell you I messaged her right after LA lost? I was like, my pick.
I showed them that you sent the drunk emoji face.
Well, no one saw it coming, right? I mean, it wasn't just you, Cara.
Yeah, no, you're right. It was all of Vegas and me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, it's time for you to do the school run. But thanks so much as always, Cara. This is fun. And take it easy on Ricky on the next time you hit the court, will you?
Yeah, no, definitely will not be doing that.
Thanks, Cara.
Thanks,
Bye,
guys. Thank you.